coming to our first internship presentation of the semester. We will have these, I think we have 6 presentations this semester, and Sherry sent out an email, so you can reference that. Hope you can come back and join us for some others. But I'm pleased to introduce Miss Pollyanna Smith. She's a senior zoo and wildlife major at Malone that I think all of you know. She's had a lot of eclectic experiences since coming to Malone. She's worked in the library, been a faithful worker in our campus zoo, has served as a zoo camp counselor for us in zoo and wildlife. We've been an active part of the corral and other things. People who know Pollyanna would probably describe her as intentional, curious, and compassionate. So sometimes I advise students and they try to figure out how few classes they can take. Pollyanna is just the opposite. She wants to take everything. She wants to learn everything, and those 3 characteristics I listed, I think, stem from a deep faith. And I hope you enjoy her presentation today about her summer experience. And at Herps Alive, she's been a wonderful contributor to our program, and has kind of uniquely had an idea of what she's wanted to do for a long time that I think you'll see shine through in this presentation. So please give a round of applause for Pollyanna.
Hello. Well, as Dr. Porter said, my name is Pollyanna Smith, and I am a senior zoo and wildlife biology major here at Malone with a minor in psychology and biblical Greek. Again, kind of well-rounded there. And I am from Deerfield, Ohio, which is about half an hour east of Canton here. So, when I was really little, I fell in love with the Komodo dragon. Like, when I say little, I mean like 4 years old. And this is me at the Pittsburgh Zoo with the Komodo dragon there. My parents helped a lot with raising me and encouraging me, and my love for reptiles and other animals has just continued to grow. Here I am in 5th grade in Arizona, reaching up to pet. I don't know if you can quite see it, but in the corner of the building there is a wild black-tailed rattlesnake that I was told by a herpetologist who was with us that it was safe to do so. So I reached up and I got to pet it in the wild. And then here I am in middle school, dressed up as a zoologist already, a zookeeper. And I kept that outfit complete with the snake on all day long. My mom made that name tag for me, and it says Dragon Keeper on it. And as I grew up, my fascination with all animals has kind of just grown and included quite a bit of wildlife as well. I believe it took me 2 hours to manage to stand still long enough to get that chickadee to trust me to land on my hand. And here I am, I don't even know how young I am here, but holding a giant tiger moth before school. Through my years, through all the years of my life, my parents have really encouraged me to explore animals and nature and to learn all that I could. In 5th grade, I visited my aunt in Arizona, and before we got there, my mom reached out to her, and she got a hold of a herpetologist friend, and my aunt connected us with that herpetologist friend of hers who was working at a research station near her house, and he set it up so that we could pet a Gila monster. And getting to know this herpetologist in Arizona was the first time I knew that there was a name for somebody who loves, cares for, and studies reptiles. And from that day on, I knew a name for what I really wanted to do with my life. He also taught me how to catch wild lizards. And right here, he also helped me identify this was a striped plateau lizard that I caught using the technique that he taught me. He was very hesitant to teach it to someone as young as me, but he saw my passion and my love for animals, and he helped teach me how to do that, and then I caught it on my own, and later in the day he told me what it was and that she was very, very heavy with eggs, and so after he taught me about her, I released her back where I found her. I was raised on a small farm that was really more of a zoo because we have everything from horses, ducks, chickens, and alpacas to lizards and birds, and we have a cockatoo, cockatiels, guinea pigs. We even have a starling at home. So here I am with one of our ducks, and yes, she's wearing a diaper. We kept her in the house, but we have a whole flock that we also keep outside. Here I am with one of our alpacas. They are very, very friendly. This is my rabbit, Dakota. So this is just a sample of the menagerie of animals we have at home. And it's not just the animals it's not just me who loves animals. There's animals that have seen something different in me as well. When our church did a festival, they brought in a petting zoo, and part of that petting zoo was a wallaby. They carried the wallaby around, and the whole time, whenever anybody else reached for it to pet it, the wallaby was turned into the shoulder of the person holding it. But when it came to me, it turned around and reached out to me, showing me that it wasn't just me who loved animals, but animals saw something special in me too. And this just really confirmed which route I was taking in my life, and it was where I needed to go. By third grade, I knew I wanted to be a zookeeper, and that desire only grew as I moved through grade school. By fifth grade, I knew I wanted to be a herpetologist specifically. And so going to college to pursue a degree in zoo and wildlife biology was just a natural next step for me. I chose Malone because of the Christian atmosphere, the great professors, the specialized major, and the live animal care experience we can get here through the collection in Malone Zoo. This experience here has been everything I hoped for and more. Part of the learning program that makes Malone great is the internship opportunities that we have. With our internships, we are encouraged to find something that is more specialized in the direction we think we would like to do when we graduate. For me, that meant something with reptiles, but also animal care. So I chose to do my internship at the Herps Alive Foundation in South Euclid, Ohio. They are a reptile rescue that is part rescue, part zoo, part pet shop, and part education center. Their motto is rescue, rehab, rehome, and their mission is to rescue reptiles and educate the public about them. They started as an education program, Herps Alive, the interactive reptile and amphibian experience. The founder, Keith, would take abandoned reptiles and use them for shows to teach people about the needs of reptiles and just about them in general, make people less afraid of them. But in 2008, during the economy crash, they were taking on so many animals that they had to become a nonprofit rescue program rather than merely an education program. So the Herps Alive Foundation was officially founded in 2013, and it was originally supposed to be foster-based, but in the fall of 2013, they were called in to take a seizure of more than 100 animals in Columbus, Ohio. This made national news, and suddenly everyone knew about the Herps Alive Foundation. By December 2014, they had renovated and moved into their current location. And again, this building still needs more renovations, but they're working on it. They work with volunteers, and all the donations to them go towards the care of the animals. They are completely nonprofit. And donations are not only money. They are food, expertise, equipment, housings, and money as well. They currently have 2 vet techs and an actual full vet that come in and take care of all the animals that are injured, unhealthy, or even just the new animals. They give them a checkup, make sure they're healthy to be adopted back out. And these vets are not paid. They come in of their own time. And they also have several dozen volunteers who come in regularly to donate time, and businesses like Farmers Market that give older produce that's starting to rot. It's not good to be sold anymore, but it's still plenty good for the animals as long as it's used quickly, which it normally is. And so they donate their food and things to Herps Alive. On a yearly basis, they take in about 700 reptiles and adopt out about 500. Several of those who have come in over the years are not able to be adopted due to health concerns or just general age, and so they are kept on display at Herps Alive, which kind of is what gives it its kind of zoo atmosphere. And the critters, they also use these animals that can't be adopted as their education animals. This here is Keith, and one of his education animals, the bearded dragon named Gobbles. Gobbles has been Keith's for a very long time now, and he is an excellent, excellent ambassador species and even just an ambassador animal in general for the Herps Alive program. So most of what I did at Herps Alive was husbandry, which is also known as animal care, though I also did a fair bit of general cleaning and communicating and educating with the public. I was thrown into the fire for those first 2 days. He had me for the first 2 days he had me shadow somebody, and in those 2 days he had me do absolutely every job I was possibly going to do for the entirety of my internship. It was a little rough, but then he set me loose after those 2 days and just had me ask questions when I was unsure of something. The main jobs that I did was watering, veggie eaters, bug eaters, rodents, turtle feeding, quarantine room, and stripping and setting up cages. My favorite job was the one that Keith set me to most often, and that was watering. To do watering, I would get 2 5-gallon buckets, one for clean water, one for dirty water, and then I would go around to each and every animal. I'd get to see how they were doing, get a feel for their temperament, change their water, of course, which is what I was supposed to do, wiping out their water bowls. But I could also see if one of them had mites. One day one of the snakes did have mites, and so I was able to alert Keith to that. And just able to see if a cage needed cleaned, I would mark it to do later. I wouldn't do it right away, because the one thing I learned that was most important was to always finish one job before you moved on to the next, even if there was something pressing to do. The only exception to this rule was if somebody came in and was looking for animals or looking to purchase equipment or just needing some general help. And right away I didn't get into that very much, but I would always pause when somebody came in and pay attention, because that was how I learned. I wasn't directly taught how to communicate with people or how to educate them, and it also took me a few weeks to get used to the animals that were there, what animals were up for adoption, and just learn about the different types of animals as well. The moment that made me realize how much I had learned was when a gentleman came in who had never had a reptile before, and he asked me, what is the best reptile for somebody who has never had a reptile to adopt? And I asked him, well, what type of reptile are you looking for? A turtle, a snake, a lizard? He's like, I don't really know. Could you tell me a little bit about each of them? And so I was able to do that. It took me, I think I was with him for an hour and a half. And I talked to him about red-eared sliders, ball pythons, leopard gecko, and bearded dragons. Because lizards, there's not really just one good choice. There's 2 for lizards. I'm also partial to lizards, but they really are both very good choices for a beginner. And in the middle here is me holding a Brazilian rainbow boa. Her name is Scarlet, and she's one of the permanent residents there. She had shedding problems, and so she's blind. But she was one of my favorites because she's an absolute sweetheart, but most people didn't pay much attention to her because she was blind. But anyway, I learned, I didn't realize how much I had learned until this gentleman came in and asked me. And it was really kind of a test for me. And then afterwards I went, wow, I didn't realize that I knew so much, that I had learned so much about these different animals. I was able to tell temperament, temp and humidity needs, dietary needs, cleaning habits, whether they were diurnal or nocturnal, and how much handling they needed in order to be a friendly creature. I mean, everything about these animals, I didn't realize I had learned so much until I was asked about it. One of the other things that I learned a lot about at Herps Alive was the red-eared sliders. Herps Alive takes in a lot of red-eared sliders because they are invasive but also naturalized to Ohio, which means they don't belong here, but they breed here, they reproduce here a lot, and they take over the spaces that native species like the spotted turtle, the painted turtle, the musk turtle, and even snapping turtles need. By taking in these turtles, the Herps Alive Foundation clears up these ponds and lakes and other standing water locations that the turtles need in order to live for the native ones. There are 14 large tubs like these 2 here that are completely full of turtles. All of these turtles are adoptable, but very few people adopt them because the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, or ODNR, requires that anybody who owns a red-eared slider has to pay a $10 fee every year in order to be sure that those turtles are being taken care of and not being released into the wild. They are also each tagged with their own specific tag, so that if they do escape or are released into the wild, they can be tracked back to the last person who had them, and that person can be fined for releasing an invasive species. So Herps Alive will also go out and actively help them dredge ponds to pull out these turtles and keep records of where they went and how many turtles were pulled, which helps with the research that's being done in Ohio on invasive species and specifically turtles and pond life. One of the other things I've learned a lot about at Herps Alive was how to work with less than with less than you need for the animals that you have. I've never worked with a rescue before. I've been to rescues, I've walked through rescues on field trips, I've seen a lot of what they do and heard a lot of what they do, but I've never actually taken part in it. And as I learned in my cross-cultural class, you don't really get to understand a culture until you become a part of it. And by working at this rescue, I became a part of the rescue community, a part of that culture that cares for animals almost more than they care for other humans. Sometimes they do care more for animals than humans. And so I got to really understand what it means to take care of animals that need you and work with things that you can't do the best by the animals because you don't have what you need in order to take care of them. They worked with the minimum, each of the animals was housed with the minimum requirements at Herps Alive. If they had the funds and the space, which they are working towards, thankfully, these animals could be so much better taken care of. Not that they aren't taken care of, but ideal is not happy. Oh, where is it? I wrote it out really, really nicely and I don't want to missay it. Content is not happy and adequate is not ideal. These animals could have a lot more than they do, and I haven't been to other rescues really, but I'm sure that it's similar in other rescue facilities as well. Working with a rescue is something that I would advise each and every person to take a part of at some point in their life, so that you can understand what it takes and truly appreciate what is being done. Because a lot of people will take in animals, drop them, and never think of them again. The people who work at the rescue handle those animals each and every day and care for them and nurture them and bring them back to health. If they're wildlife, they get released. In this case, they get rehomed or given a permanent forever home here at Herps Alive. This here is a skink that is eating some of the strawberries. One of the farmers markets gave us 4 cases of slightly moldy strawberries. And we went through those strawberries in 3 days because they were starting to mold. And I didn't get a picture of it because I had to separate them, but there was also like 5 box turtles in one enclosure and they were fighting over the strawberries. I had to actively separate them and actually put like a pile of strawberry in front of each of them so they would stop fighting over it. But you can see how much they appreciate getting some variety in their diet. And these turtles here is Morla, Tank, and Jack, 2 sulcatas and an African spurred tortoise. And there are 3 of the 4 tortoises. The sulcatas are something that are sold when they're this big at the pet store, and people don't realize that they get to be massive. I mean, even Morla could easily gain another 150 pounds, and she's at 80 pounds right now. So there's an entire room dedicated to these guys, and even it's not quite enough space. I also hope to continue volunteering at Herps Alive Foundation through the school year as I can. Classes have been a bit rough so far, but I'll get there when I can. I also want to give a shout out to the Herbert Hoover Foundation, because without them I would have had to be worrying about the financial burden of doing an unpaid scholarship over the summer. They put out a scholarship application, and I applied, and they paid for my internship in full. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out, thank you to them. So, when I was little, really little, I gave my life to Christ. And shortly after that, I received the dream and deep desire to earn the title of Dragon Keeper. As I have grown up, that dream has matured to finding a way to earn this title through caring for reptiles. Every step of my journey through life with God has guided me closer and closer to fulfilling this dream that He gave me. From the Komodo dragon at the Pittsburgh Zoo, to meeting the herpetologist in Arizona, to coming here to Malone University. God has guided me every step of the way. Having several reptilian pets and encouraging me was my parents' way of helping me accomplish this dream. Getting good grades and coming here to Malone was my way of accomplishing this dream. As a freshman in high school, my parents allowed me to finally get a baby dragon, iguana, of my own. They're regretting this choice now that I'm at college. But on the right, or left, I think it's your left, is when I first got him. And the picture on the other side here is me with him just a few weeks ago. He has grown indeed into a mighty dragon. But I'm the only member of my family who can really handle him. He's an absolute sweetheart for me, but he's a beast for anybody else. And so he was kind of my first, and still is, an ongoing test into gaining my title of Dragon Keeper. But Keith was the first real Dragon Keeper in my life that I've met. Being at Herps Alive and getting to study under him has built up my reptilian expertise more than I can say right now. I don't even know how much I've learned until I'm presented with something, such as the gentleman who came in and wanted to know something about every animal we had. And my last 2 semesters here at Malone University will give me the rest of the expertise that I need in order to head off in the direction of continuing to fulfill my dream that God gave me. After I graduate, I plan to initially take another internship, hopefully at a zoo, but also I've been looking into Animal Kingdom at Disney and Noah's Lost Ark, which is another rescue, as potential places for me to start, and then hopefully apply and get into a full-time job at a zoo. Also in my future is the potential for a master's degree. But there's only one university that's currently offering a master's in zoology, so having a master's isn't really a need for my field right now. It may be in the future, but with only one school offering it, the experience of actually having worked in a zoo and worked with animals is much more valuable than a master's degree. So if God leads me to a master's degree, so be it. Otherwise, I'm gonna stick to the zoo field and continue along there. God has guided me for my entire life, ever since I started trusting Him as a child. And He's going to continue to guide me and lead me wherever it is that He wants me to be. This is a Bible verse that has kind of fed me through the years, and somebody else gave it to me and said, "This describes you." I had never read it before, but the instant I read it, I knew it was true. She confidently trusts the Lord to take care of her. This has been me my entire life, and it has gotten me here. Thank you.